you, one of you can
No,
speak.
we're together. Yeah, we've been in the neighborhood probably 3 years. We just thought we'd check this out. Have read about it a few times, so finally remembered on the right Tuesday to come on out.
Sure. What?
I'm Lindsay and that's Eric.
Oh yeah.
Saw that thing about free beer?
What street do you live on?
Crestwood.
Crestwood. Great. Anyone else? Sir?
Yeah, Pierre, God, I've been here about 6 years. I'm a member, but I've just never come to. I live on Green Drive near Eastland almost.
Sure. Great.
I'll add in, I've been once or twice in the past. I live right next door to Gare. I spend my time at Westside community meetings and rarely come to my own neighborhood meetings. So I have occasionally pop in, but glad to join you after a very long hiatus.
Great. Anyone else? All right. I don't know if we have any other public officials here at the moment, but if any show up, I guess we'll try to stick them in here. So the East Atlanta Security Patrol update, for those who aren't familiar with it, which is probably not many in the room, but I'll give the 2-minute version. We started about 13 years ago to provide extra security and safety for the neighborhood. We hire off-duty police officers to patrol the neighborhood pretty much on a daily basis. And I know in the last 10 years, we've seen our crime rate drop considerably, which is, I would assume, a little bit attributed to the security patrol, some other factors as well, but it really is a good resource for our community, and I hope you will consider supporting it. The enrollment dates are quarterly, so the next one is April 1st. There's some sheets on the table, or you can read more about it at EASecuritypatrol.com. It's $50 per quarter and half price if you're a senior or have lived in the neighborhood 20 years or longer. So, trying to think what else. Some of the strategies we use are to get members are that we patrol a lot more in the areas where we have the largest numbers of members. So it behooves you, if you even see 10 people who are members on your street, to sign up 5 more. You'll get that much more of the patrol time. So we are doing a little bit of a promotion, one that's a little different. So if you're an EACA member and are not a security patrol member, we will give you the first quarter for free. So $20 to join EACA, save $50 on the first quarter of the security patrol. So, yes, ma'am.
And it's only within the city limits, correct?
It is, unfortunately.
Worth mentioning.
So, yes, it is only within the city of Atlanta. So even the streets that have a mixture of DeKalb and city of Atlanta, we technically only patrol the city of Atlanta homes. So, and it's staffed by city of Atlanta officers, so technically they can't really respond to your 911 calls. Any questions about security patrol? I guess one other thing I should say, these are regular APD officers. They're in uniform, they got guns. Most of them are driving an actual patrol car, which is a little bit of a change from what we used to do. So that's sort of another added benefit we've been able to work out. So may be a little less visible than it used to be because you could see the security patrol logo, but I think the trade-off is probably worth it. So. All right, moving on. We have Armando from Argosy to talk about filming in the EAB.
Hey y'all, so as some of you may or may not know, I have volunteered as the East Atlanta Business Association Film Liaison. What is a film liaison? What I wrote down is act as a go-between for location scouts and location managers in the community. What the City of Atlanta Office of Film and Entertainment writes is assist the production with any pertinent information regarding the community, i.e. festivals, parties, weddings, sensitive neighbor, etc. Any information that you might think impact an event with the production being in the community. And assist with keeping the community informed about filming in the area and whatever logistics you can share per our office or the location manager via email or the community social media handles. So, does that mean you can yell at me about obnoxious productions? No, you cannot. But you will now have direct line with this Office of Film and Entertainment if there is ever a question or concern. Listing your business or residence is done through the Georgia Department of Economic Development's Georgia Real Scout. If anyone has questions about how you do that, I can put you in touch with my contacts there as I learn that process as well. Also, reach out to me if you are planning on renting out your property or business because I can go ahead and start giving a heads up to the film office. So tonight I was going to be coming before you guys to request permission to add East Atlanta Village to this film database. But in doing some research this month, it turns out we are already in this database. What I would kind of like to do is maybe take over that database entry a little bit, maybe get some more attractive photographs in there, things like that. We don't need to think about that right now because I have some guests from that office. They'll be coming up and kind of making some comments, and we'll make that decision another time. But another thing is that we have a document, a filming guidelines sheet for productions coming into East Atlanta Village. It is important to get this message out in front of production companies before they book time in the village so that they're aware of our asks on parking, utilizing local businesses, our asks on noise ordinances, and we are asking for charitable donations to EACA and EBA through these productions, which so far has been very successful this year. So the Mayor's Office of Film and Entertainment will be assisting me in refining this document within their guidelines before I present it to you all, and at which point I'll use Myron to help get that information out. Tonight, LaShawn Cook and Casby Bias, is it Bias or Bias? From the City of Atlanta Office of Film and Entertainment are here to tell you guys a little bit about what they do and then take some questions from anyone if you've ever had questions or concerns about filming in the village. And I will sit down and let them chat for a minute.
Hello, everybody. I just want to say thank you for having us tonight, the community and President Myron, and thank you, Armando. We are two individuals within the Mayor's Office of Film and Entertainment. My name is LaShawn Cook, and production manager within the office, and my colleague.
I'm Casby Bias, and I'm our production coordinator for the office.
So we facilitate all of the filming that happens within the City of Atlanta city limits. We're a small team. As you guys know, there's a lot of productions that film all around the city. So it's good to have a film liaison that's a point of contact for the community. We had a great conversation with Armando, and we would hope that he is your film liaison. Do you guys have any questions for us, just kind of off the fly? Anything? Yes, sir.
On the emails you guys send out, can we start putting the addresses and stuff impacted inside the body of the email at the top?
Okay.
This laundry list of who's getting copied on it.
Copy that.
It's like, it's important to know who sees the messages.
Right,
but
right.
It could probably be at the bottom, so when we open it, we can focus immediately on
Okay.
does it impact our neighborhood.
Okay.
So when we receive those emails,
Copy
I have
that.
no idea whether it really impacts us because you guys divide the city up differently
Right.
and views differently than other stuff.
Right. So we were telling Armando, so we're in the process of breaking our system down. So you may get inundated because when we essentially came into the office, it was broken down by APD zone. APD regulates all of the filming that happens within the city. Anytime a production takes a permit or utilizes the right-of-way, they have to have an officer. Now we're trying to break that system down just to community. So pretty soon, hopefully by the end of the month, you'll just be receiving East Atlanta Village notifications. So you won't get anything that's happening in Kirkwood or Candler Park or somewhere else. But to answer your question, yes, I need to go back to the IT department because that's system functionality. That's how they have it set up. The first thing is the recipients, and then, after that is the attachments. So do you look at the top sheet?
So yeah, I do. So I actually
Okay.
jump into the attachments.
Copy that.
And those are actually easier to read.
Copy that. But you're saying copying that information and throwing it in the body email?
And then,
We can look into that.
If you're looking at the NPU,
Right.
you see all of those.
Right.
come in.
Right.
Making sure that your zip code and addresses match up, so you're looking at boundaries.
Right.
Right.
Correct.
So as we're closing Memorial and as we're closing
Right.
stuff in Kirkwood, it's
Right.
impacting multiple NPUs,
Of
multiple
course.
neighborhoods.
Of course. Anything that shares those boundary lines, both of those communities or multiple, will be notified. We're just trying to condense it as much as we can. It really doesn't affect you all so much in Zone 6. It's more so a downtown Zone 5 issue. A lot of people get upset being that they're notified on things happening downtown, but they're up in Atlantic Station.
And so,
So,
to follow up on that, so the same program you're using is
Uh-huh.
something they use in Los Angeles.
right.
And not only have a mapping functionality,
Right.
which would be amazing if we had that.
We're trying to
but
get
there's
there. It's
also,
costly.
You can enter your home address,
Uh-huh.
and then any filming that happens within a predefined distance,
Correct.
will get emailed.
Right.
So as a resident, instead of the NPU or EACA trickling that back out to folks,
Right.
we could have neighbors go, I'm really concerned there's a lot of stuff in my neighborhood.
Right.
Click the box, and
Right.
just like all the other notifications,
Right.
actively pushes.
That's the goal. We're in phase 3 right now, what they're calling it. That is the goal, so that everybody within the community will be a part of the email blast, and they'll just get the notification from the city directly. That doesn't take away from production notifying door to door. We're not there yet, but I hear you loud and clear. We'll make sure to look into that. Any other questions? Anybody? No? No? Yes, sir.
So what kind of guidance do you provide as far as what kind of donations we ask for?
Okay. That's a great question.
Any other things that we should be telling people?
Armando and I were talking about that, and he can definitely speak more in detail to that. But each community is different. We spoke about beautification. You guys want to make sure that the streets are beautified, and there's different initiatives that you guys have as a community. That's how you can start. Productions will make a donation. The city can't really speak to the amount. We just regulate and enforce accommodation. So if, like, we have a production that's going to be filming this weekend, does anybody live in that area, Metropolitan Place? Boom. They're supposed to be providing you with parking placards. So when they do their full street closure on Saturday, you'll have a placard. As soon as you appear to the full street closure, APD will let you in immediately. We enforce things like that. We can't really get entangled in the compensation amount, but it really just depends on your initiatives. We may have some children that want to work in the film industry someday, so we can request that they shadow the production if the production's unable to pay. There may be a thing where they're filming in the summertime and you guys want them to pay for a food truck or an ice cream truck that's gonna, allow some PR for the neighborhood. There's just different things that you guys can do. We've discussed some of those items, so if you guys want to get creative, we support it fully. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious, and maybe this is more of a question for the council person, but you said that you guys can't do anything, to ensure that they're paying a proper fee, that this is all donation. I mean, we have things like park impact fees,
Right.
where if a developer is making impact on a community, there's a
Right.
set fee for that.
Right.
To me, this system seems very much like it's whatever you can convince them to give you,
Gotcha.
which generally tends to be very inequitable.
Of course.
And not usually the best way to go. So is there should we be pushing, is that a question more for our council people?
That most definitely is for Councilmember Archibong. The ordinance doesn't speak to it right now. That's something that could be up for legislation. So, yeah.
But there are fees for them to get their like if they get a location permit, there is an actual fee.
Correct. Well,
We're
we
talking
only
about donations to ECA, as of right now.
right. But as far as what you're saying, location fees, that business is done between you as a property owner and that production company. We don't regulate private property. Production will incur fees for any use of the right of way, lane, street, sidewalk closures, or city property, parks, things of that nature. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, so those fees, like if they close sidewalk, do those go back to the same jurisdiction, or do they just go into some general pot?
As far as the funds,
Yeah.
that goes to general fund. That doesn't go to our budget. It goes directly into the general fund, no different than Department of Public Works issuing a permit to a contractor that's trying to build in the community. That's it. anything else? You have anything?
They're having the demonstration at the Capitol tomorrow morning.
Correct.
Yes, that's correct.
How's that in your
Film Day at the Capitol, we, that's the Georgia Film Office and the Governor's Office. We're in partnership with them. If you guys would like to come, I believe it is open to the general public. It is at 9 a.m. tomorrow at the Capitol. It's really just it's networking, a lot of political conversation that I'm not really involved in that much, but it is good to just be in the room. I believe that just so you guys know, conversation has came up to tweak the film tax incentive. I don't know if they're going to be discussing that at tomorrow's event, but it has been up for discussion in the past few weeks, so that's something that we should all look into. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Do we have a code responsibility for them where it talks about their parking requirements, their kind of respect for the community, like the things we're talking about?
Right,
so like
right.
when I look at filing for a permit, it doesn't call those out, it just says follow the ordinance.
Right.
So is there a one-sheeter that says, hey, here's the 20 points you guys really need to keep an eye on every time you film in Atlanta?
No, not currently right now.
That is what we're creating,
Correct.
the EBA.
Specific to us.
Right, specific to the community. So that's the document that they're working on. We're hoping to get that finalized by the end of the month. Anybody else? No? Well, we're here for a few minutes, so if you guys have any additional questions, and then of course you can reach out to Armando, and we hope to be at the next meeting. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Come on up. We have a little EBA update for you.
So I'm Nate Miner. Last time I talked to you guys, I had longer hair. And I was not, well, I probably was the president of EBA then. But we now do have a business association. We have started membership as of a couple months ago. We have over 47 businesses enrolled. I say over because some have applied and not paid or whatever, but they are paying or we're breaking their knees. Want to give you guys a little bit of an update about what we are kind of doing right now. We're working with the Atlanta Main Streets program, which is a program through the Department of City Planning that works with Georgia Main Streets, which works with National Main Streets. If you're not familiar with those, please Google them. But the Main Streets program is basically revitalized a number of dying downtown business districts in small communities through historic preservation, economic development, a number of other things. We are working on kind of making that something that fits into an urban neighborhood district. And so we're working with Sweet Auburn, West End, Westview as fellows through the Department of City Planning to kind of see how this affects us and how it can impact us for improvements to our neighborhood. So hopefully you guys will be seeing some pretty cool stuff over the next year that we're going to be able to do because of that. We are also working on, as a part of that, an event in May that will be what we're calling Whispers of History. It'll be a tour guided by our very own Henry and Katina, who wrote the Images of America East Atlanta book. And it'll be kind of a tour of the East Atlanta business district and maybe a block outside or so to kind of really get those of you guys who know a lot about the neighborhood but don't know a whole lot about the history of the neighborhood. It'll give you an opportunity to participate in that. And if you haven't seen the book we're talking about, you will also receive a copy of that as a part of the tour. Follow East Atlanta Biz on Facebook for more information. And we're going to open that up to 25 people, and that's it. So I imagine that we could pretty much sell it to everyone in this room, and that would be great if we did. Then we are also working on the Madison Theater. We've talked about that over the last year or so of reforming the business association. One of the main things that we were interested in doing is figuring out some way to preserve the historic Madison Theater that was built in 1927 in the neighborhood and has sat vacant for almost 50 years. 50 years being the requirement to be a vacant building. To be a historic building, it's sat vacant almost as long as it's required to just be historic. So we are still continuing to work on that. Also, some of that is going through the Main Streets program. We have already met with the Fox Theater and the Fox Theater Institute to judge some interest, also get ideas as far as, well, right now it's can we get into the building because it was condemned and it wasn't condemned, and really no one in the city knows if it's condemned or not. There was filming there, but it was condemned, but I should probably talk to you guys about that. But the idea is purely, as we've said a lot of times, it's exploratory, but we do want to work with the property owner and see what we can do to restore and bring back the Madison for some type of community use. What that will be, we don't know exactly, because that's going to depend on where the money comes from, how the money gets there, and what we're able to do with it. But did have a really great meeting with the Fox Theater and Fox Theater Institute that I think gave us a lot of positive aspects into how we can bring the Madison back. And I think that everyone in the neighborhood would agree that that would be an amazing thing if that was a functional space again and available for filming. Again, membership is open, so if you're a small business owner, home, brick and mortar, whatever, we encourage you to join. You can join right now, eastatlantabiz.com. Does anybody have any questions? Then I did great.
Mr. Durant is in the room. Is that you?
How you guys doing?
Are you ready, or do you need a couple minutes to set up?
I think I'll just do without the presentation.
Okay.
I have some papers that are handed.
Totally up to you. We can go to someone else and come back to you if you want to do the screen. Chris, are you here? Do you want to buy him a couple minutes to get set up?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Brazell. I've been in East Atlanta for about 15 years now. So Pierre and I are representing Eastside Church, which is the one right across from Dance 401 with the rainbow doors. You've probably seen right there off Moreland. So Pierre and I are representing a new group that the church has formed related to community engagement. So we're actively looking for ways that we can get out for volunteer activities, how we can help those in need, and just become more involved as a congregation to the community that we've been in. That church has been around for a very, very, very long time. So one of the things that we're doing this month, we do other things. We work with Brandon Towers, Wellroot. We're also going to become a ministry partner with Chris 180 and kind of support their needs as well. This month that we are showing a film at the church. It's called True Justice. Many of you may have heard about the film. It's an HBO documentary that follows a gentleman who was previously incarcerated, and he became a lawyer, and now what he does is he goes out and it follows his journey of helping those who may have been disadvantaged and not necessarily given a fair ride within the criminal justice system because maybe they didn't have the money, maybe they were not privileged enough to have high-priced lawyers, but he goes out and he tries to help them. And it's a documentary where he tries to help those who need help in that particular area. So we got a grant from the Arthur Blank Foundation to show this film and to open it up to the community. So we're showing it on March 21st from 5 to 7. Again, it is free, completely open to everyone in the East Atlanta, Glenwood, and Grant Park communities. And if we get more interest, we'll open it up to more of the surrounding communities as well. We're kind of opening it up to the surrounding communities for now. There is limited seating if you're interested in coming to this event. I think half the seats are already, we got half the seats already booked for someone who's gone online to our Facebook account and went ahead and booked. We are offering free childcare. So if you've got kids and you want to bring them and you need childcare, we are offering that for free, and then there'll be a discussion afterwards. But if you're interested, you can sign up on our Facebook account to come watch the movie. Pierre, am I missing anything?
I think that's about everything.
Hopefully you'll see us more at these meetings that we have every month. It's one of the other things that we're trying to do more is get involved in. Even the East Atlanta Community Association, we are a member of the association as well, and have supported some activities from time to time, but we're trying to become more and more involved with even this association. So if you got any questions, just feel free to post them on the Facebook account or catch Pierre and I before you leave today. All right? Thank you.
Need it darker or? Read it. Whenever you're ready.
Everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna sit down for the rest of this to control this here. But I'd like to start off by introducing myself. Good evening, everybody. My name is Rudolph Duran Jr., and I'm with the Nature Conservancy. Has anyone ever heard of the Nature Conservancy? Amazing. So for all of you guys that aren't familiar, the Nature Conservancy is a nonprofit, a global nonprofit that is big on environmental conservation. It's kind of conservancy, so we do. So we're very big on work that is rural. We are known for our rural work and the different things that we do in the outskirts of cities, but recently the Nature Conservancy has embarked on city and landscape conservation. So there's roughly 22 cities programs throughout the entire nation, and now there are global cities programs as well. And I am a member of Atlanta's urban conservation team. So what I'd like to introduce you all today to is the South River Forest concept. Does anybody have any idea what? Oh, see? That's why I'm gonna sit soon, I promise. Does anybody ever heard of that?
I just push buttons.
Yes, sir. Has anyone ever heard of the South River Forest concept? You two are cheaters. It doesn't count. All right, well, the South River Forest is the vision for a 3,500-acre megapark spanning the east side of Atlanta on the Fulton and DeKalb County lines. Now, it's an ambitious vision, and I'm going to take you guys into a deeper dive of exactly kind of where it came about from. Woo. So this amoeba over here, that's our east side of Atlanta that I was referring to. This is Atlanta as a whole, and this idea was actually drafted up by the Atlanta City Design. It's a really big, thick blue book, and this map is in the middle. But this concept was not created by the Nature Conservancy, but we are currently supporting and driving it. So this is another look at that kind of wealth of green space. So Atlanta is known for being the city in the forest. The South River Forest is basically our last opportunity to put a forest within our city, within the actual city limits of 285 in Atlanta.
On that map, can I ask a question?
Can I get questions after?
Or did you say that?
I'll take all questions after. I got you. So this is the South River. Has anyone actually seen this river? That's also amazing. You two are still cheating. But the South River is a river that kind of goes invisible. It's running with tributaries all throughout this neighborhood and further down Moreland, and it actually goes further down all the way to the Atlantic. The South River isn't the healthiest river in America right about now. It actually has I think it has the lowest water quality rating right now. So you can't really do much in that river. besides take pictures. We also paddle sometimes with the South River Watershed Alliance. If I'm incorrect, the last time I was told, if I'm incorrect, I don't want to give it
Measurements
back.
aren't really being done to be able to make that statement.
Okay, that's what I want to check.
But we're starting to measure. So.
Okay, so that was false information. I don't want to lie about the river, so please.
It's not in great shape.
So now this is a little bit of background on the actual river. We kind of slide through this part. Now I'm going to go into a further introduction of the river. So, like I told you earlier, Atlanta, we're going to go down to the Ocmulgee River, then we connect to the Altamaha River, and then we make it to the Atlantic Ocean. Showing some more visuals, just kind of showing, this is our kind of hope right here, and this just gives you a better relation to see where exactly the river is located and where it runs. Once again, just more images of the city showing you where on the east side the river is and the different properties that we're trying to connect. You may notice some parks or areas that you're familiar with. Starlight, Thomasville Heights, Moreland. A couple different areas within this local kind of 15-minute range that are all kind of going to be encompassed within the park, forest. So this gives you a little bit of history in terms of what this land was about. So once upon a time, everything that was here or is here right now wasn't here. So the Honor Farm, some of these plants, railroads, the U.S. Penitentiary, a lot of these pieces, parcels have been placed within this area, and some of them are inactive now. So a lot of the South River Forest is about connecting the pieces together, intertwining the urban infrastructure with the urban industrial fixtures. As it becomes more urban, you can still see the history of the area as it kind of grows and different things become in place, like the Starlight Drive-In. More growth. You see when the industrial features, industrial folk just started coming in. You know, there's a lot of plants and a lot of trucking areas further down Moreland as well. Now we're going to talk about reclaiming our industrial landscape. Fighting for the river. So it's not in great shape. I think we just discussed that. I won't take too deep of a dive because I don't have the actual metrics and facts and numbers about the river, but the river needs more attention. At the end of the day, when rivers are healthy, we can use them, we can interact with them, we can engage with them. But where it is right now, enough people aren't concerned with the actual state of the river, and awareness to the river and its health is what matters most. The river connects a variety of parks, and just by interacting with a park and possibly taking a picture, sharing it on social media, you're bringing more engagement to the community, to the park, and to the chances of the survival and the returning health of said river. Development pressures. This is a sensitive subject. So, obviously, when you think development means they're probably going to knock trees down. Trees are probably going to be replaced, and that kind of hurts the whole vision for a forest. So we need to be aware of the different development pressures and kind of what we're being susceptible to and what's presented to us, and protecting our land and protecting the legacies of those that have been here for quite some time. When you look at what we're talking about, there are definitely other examples of intertwined and engaged in green spaces in terms of how they interact with cities. With these examples here, just other cities and how they kind of found ways to connect people and nature, city and nature. LA River, Buffalo Bayou, Mill River in Connecticut, the greatest city in the world, New York. And just showing great ways for people that were born in cities like myself to have a better time interfacing with nature. Life after landfills. I'm sure you guys know there's some very large landfills in the back. So just having the opportunity to kind of recreate those spaces and clean up some of the rubbish that they have and possibly transform those spaces into things that we can have for more recreational use, more family use, environmental use. A proposal. So, like I said earlier, just to reiterate, the remaining green space in the tree canopy along the South River is what we're trying to preserve. So the South River Forest, and this is the hardest part about my job, guys, it's really already here. It's just not connected, it's not protected in all cases, and it's not all acknowledged, I guess. reclaiming some of the underutilized areas like those landfills, like the Honor Farm, the different areas that are currently restricted and public access isn't granted, Lake Charlotte. There's a ton of property right back here that none of us can actually touch if we felt like it. So just opening those spaces and making them publicly accessible are part of bringing the vision together. Engaging the people. So this project here is all about equity. By definition, equity is meeting people where they are. So no one wants you guys to go when we talk about those development pressures, which is why I talked about that sensitive subject. You know, when new things come, that typically means old people have to go. The goal of this project is for everybody to be aware and engaged, so that way you have the opportunity to prepare yourself and grow with this project rather than this project go without you. Oh, wait. So this is a view of kind of other regional parks that we have that are similar in size in comparison to what the South River Forest could be. I love Sweetwater. Kennesaw is kind of high. Stone Mountain's a very, very tough walk. I don't know if there are going to be as many hills in the South River Forest, but it is going to be a beautiful opportunity and a beautiful thing to look at. How big? 3,500 acres. I said that in the beginning. When you look at Kennesaw being 3,325, 1,500 in Arabian Mountain, 1,000 in Panola, 32 at Stone Mountain, 3,500 is a winner, and we would love to see that on the inside of Atlanta. Park opportunities, like I said before, nature preserves, recreational activity, education and jobs, land reuse. Sorry, I said land refill. Landfill reuse. Moving on to the core values of what it could actually become. Growth and conservation. Sustaining the actual vision and putting the different, I guess, connections together in terms of actually completing the vision and bringing it all together would take a whole lot, but you have to think about what green space like this could do for people. With the opportunity that people could have to interact with green space on the day-to-day and the different health benefits that that has on human beings. To say it again, all these different parks and all these different opportunities, they are connection points with people in nature. Equity, progress, ambition, access, and nature. People-driven themes that are all going to be embodied by the park. So, once again, I grew up in a city, so this is kind of exciting for me because I wish New York did have something like this. Because nature's cool. I didn't know that the whole time. I was very, I'm concrete supportive. That's what I like to say about myself. But when you actually get a chance, you ever take a 10-minute walk in the woods? It's amazing what that does for your mind, and that's what this park actually gives us the opportunity for us city slickers. Equity, once again, this project shouldn't happen without the people. It's very upsetting to know that every time something new comes into your home, you have to leave it. Someone has to be sacrificed in part of you improving my neighborhood. So at this point, right now, my job is to engage, make sure that everyone's aware and everyone has a chance to actually put a hand in this project. These are kind of some sample images of what some of the lands over here could look like. More than revamped. This right here goes into the different types of housing innovations and the cost of living and social engagement and making sure that we are taking the affordability of future housing into account. Whew, look at that. Moving forward. It is truly an ambitious project, and it's going to have a lot of different, I guess, factors and facets. My most important factor, at least the most important factor to me, is the people. So at the end of the day, somebody does influence me, not in terms of, someone makes sure I come out and present. But the actual passion to it comes straight out of myself. At the end of the day, the displacement piece does hurt, and there's so much opportunity that it would be messed up for anybody to kind of miss out on. Local business owners, volunteers, activists, everyone has a chance to get involved in this project in a variety of different ways. It all depends on how you'd actually like to engage with the river. So this right here is the Value Village. This one's the craziest one to me. If you've actually been to that Value Village, I didn't believe it when I first seen the pictures. When I started, y'all, I was scared. Because, can you go back one more time? I've seen that picture several times. But to know that this much opportunity is possibly right around the corner, that's That's something special. I don't even know what this is and how to get here, but that's the mountain that we don't have. That I was talking about Stone Mountain. That's for our calories right there.
It's Trash Mountain.
That's Trash Mountain. Trash Mountain.
It is trash.
That's what my kids call it, Trash Mountain.
So we're gonna try to make it Tree Mountain.
Where is that location?
That's Value Village right down the street.
John Moreland?
Yeah.
Rowan Avenue Shopping Center.
Yes.
Is that the Donzi landfill behind?
Yes. No problem. Once again, the different ways in terms of connectivity as well, the belt line and other different trails, we would hope to have different things like that to actually have access points within the South River Forest so that we can connect immediately and have our own access points rather than having to drive to just one point at a time. Now, I don't know who did this stuff, but the digitized images are amazing. Moving forward. If I talk to you about nature one more time, you're not gonna know I work for the Nature Conservancy. So I'm actually gonna stop right here in terms of presenting. I think you guys do have a good firm grasp on what the concept is, and I'll actually have my card that I make available to anybody here that wants to email me, ask me any further questions. Now, in terms of immediate engagement with the river, so the Nature Conservancy is actually hosting a volunteer day with Coca-Cola on May 8th. We're looking for team leads right now, and anybody that wants to sign up, we have a couple spaces left. So a team lead, bottom line, we have guests coming into your community. We would prefer them be showed around by and stewarded with actual leaders from their community. And then the Southern Watershed Alliance does give great paddles. So making the comment on the river, I don't have 1,000,010 facts, but I have seen it more than once. And that was one of the greatest opportunities I had to engage when I first started working here. Actually getting on the river, seeing how long it is, what's in it. I seen a snake, I jumped, I'm serious. It was just a fun opportunity. So please don't think that the river is invisible. There are people that care about it, and there are things being done to impact it, and we would love for you all to join us. Thank you.
Just leave it for a second.
For the map, maybe?
Yeah, after the map.
You have a question, Pat?
This picture here, the northern part of the map, running down Moreland Avenue, if you look at the top corner on the right. Suppose you own that corner on the right. Can I still cut down the trees on it?
So I wouldn't necessarily say I'm fit to answer that question, but to the best of my own ability, I would think that this is about kind of an agreement between those that want this to happen and the actual residents of the community. So as a private landowner, it'd be a conversation, but I'm sure you can do what you want with your land. The hope would be that you don't.
The other question I have is, of these 3,500 acres, how many are already owned by the city or some government entity?
I don't have the exact number, but I may be able to get that for you.
I can answer a little bit. So, I'm Shannon, I'm a neighbor. I also work for the Conservation Fund, which is a national nonprofit, and we're the land acquisition partner for the city of Atlanta. So any land that the city purchases for parks and green space, we do that acquisition on. I can tell you that within this footprint here that's outlined, there's already, I believe, about 800 to 900 acres that's already under some sort of public ownership. That doesn't necessarily mean it's publicly accessible. So for instance, the Prison Farm, Honor Farm is here. That's a big chunk. There's a 200-acre parcel that's recently been purchased that's not public yet. That's in this footprint. This is Entrenchment Creek Park, which we'll talk about a little bit more. This is Constitution Lake. So there's already a lot of property within this that's protected. I think all of these that are in this green here are publicly protected.
South side.
Yeah, so there's a lot of space already in there, and the idea is not to force homeowners, property owners, to do anything that's outside the normal tree ordinance processes. This is about an effort to protect what land that that's there and available for protection. There are things going on that are already putting much of this property at risk. I'm sure most of you know about the proposal by DeKalb County to swap a big portion of Entrenchment Creek Park. This property here, I can tell you a huge chunk, about 100 acres, has been clear cut in the last year by a group out of Michigan that owns a property. The DeKalb has basically been powerless to stop them from clear cutting with no erosion control whatsoever. Trees there, so there are big chunks of property that could be protected for public use. And then there's chunks that are already there that we just don't have any access to. I'm sure many of you have been out on a prison farm tour or know about that effort. So there's lots of land that we as taxpayers already own that would be part of this.
Any other questions by chance? Yes, sir. Thank you, Shannon.
Yep. Anytime, Rudolph.
I noticed your map is primarily DeKalb County. What about Fulton County?
It's on the west side of Moreland is
So,
city.
yeah, so everything this way, the south side, Thomasville Park, the different green spaces on that side,
What about
Lakewood.
north of there?
Hmm?
What about north of there, all the way up to United?
I don't believe that's covered within the park in terms of the, like, what's expected to be encompassed within the South River Forest. But part of the reason why I'm here is because our initial approach seemed to focus too much on this. At the end of the day, if you're right here, you matter just as much, which is why I just made it here today. We want everyone to be included and make sure that they feel like it's a part of their park and within their range.
What about connectivity between the 3500 future park and the Beltline?
That, I'm not sure of, but what I can say is Ryan Gravel actually works with the Nature Conservancy on this, so to our knowledge, to my knowledge, I haven't actually heard of anything like that possible, but I'm sure with his involvement, a trail system will be made.
Well, there is already an effort. DeKalb County has underway to connect the South River Trail up behind Donsey Landfill at the Value Village. And then I know that there are at least conversations with the Beltline to connect from there on over to Boulevard Crossing Park. But I don't know the current state of those, but I know that DeKalb has gotten permission, I believe, to make it at least up to Donsey. So, you know, with trails, it's always a step at a time.
I'd like to talk to both of you later about some things that I've heard about.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Gotcha.
Thanks.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rudolph. Oh, did you want to announce me? I'm sorry.
We're gonna squeeze in someone off the agenda. So I will let you introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, I'm Margaret Brady. I'm a neighbor. I live in unincorporated DeKalb on Edgemore, but I'm also the new executive director of the South River Watershed Alliance. As it's been said, the South River has been pretty horribly neglected for decades, but the water quality has improved tremendously over the last 10 years, and we're fighting really hard. That is obviously our mission is to improve it for nature and people. It starts in East Point, it goes all the way across the south side of Atlanta, and dips down below us in this area Rudolph was talking about. And so Entrenchment Creek as well, which is the watershed we're in, is the largest urban tributary of the South River, and is threatened right now by a potential land swap that we're here to talk about. If you wanted to join me, Shannon, and discuss that a little bit. I don't know if any of y'all have been to Entrenchment Creek Park, but if you haven't, you're missing out. It's a really beautiful 136-acre park that 50 or so acres are being considered in a swap proposal between DeKalb County and Black Hall Studios and Movie Studio. So essentially, public parkland would be given to a private developer to basically clear cut and develop on.
I guess I was going to ask this, does everybody in here, have you heard of this? I mean, is there, I don't want to just be redundant with things you've already heard, so I don't know if there's any specific questions people have besides that basic overview. They want to give away our park. The one thing that I would really add is that this sets a legal precedent. This is not just about one park. Once you remove a restrictive deed covenant, and allow that park to be sold, that is then a legal precedent, which means every developer can then come to DeKalb and demand they analyze their swap and see if they want to make a deal. And then once DeKalb starts doing that, then, you know, maybe Atlanta starts doing that, maybe Brookhaven and Gwinnett starts doing it. So it doesn't just affect one park. Legal precedent could put all of our parkland at risk, and we could be talking about, are we giving away Mount Arabia next?
Didn't the county just approve it, and what's the status?
So what the county has approved, from our understanding, is to move forward with the due diligence process, which I'm assuming means for them to finalize their legislative process to actually trade the land away. They have been having conversations with both the Trust for Public Land and the Blank Foundation in regards to trying to meet some preconceived requirements that Trust for Public Land and Blank Foundation have laid out. I think community engagement is the only thing that they seem to.
Do you mind if I just
No, go
jump?
ahead.
Okay,
Please do.
this is an extremely complicated issue. We're not going to get through it in 5 minutes. We've been, you know,
round and round for a year.
Yeah, running on fumes, really, because they've got, you know, a lot of money and a PR agency. We don't even have a website up yet right now. What we have is a Facebook page. But I think what we probably need to do is have a meeting where we can answer everyone's questions about this issue, because it's pretty in-depth. But we do have some materials if anyone's interested. Is there anyone in here who hasn't heard about it? Well, that's good to know. So.
I guess I'll just add, right now, we think that the next step is probably a legal step, having to stop them with an injunction, which means we need to pay for attorneys. So there is a GoFundMe page set up to help support the efforts to pay for attorneys if anyone is interested in helping to stop them.
Yeah, I mean, our call to action is visit our Facebook page. If you're on Facebook, there's a GoFundMe page. It's gofundme.com/stop-the-swap. But if you just did Stop the Swap GoFundMe, you'd probably find it. And yeah, I mean, this is a community-led effort. Again, nothing like this sort South River Forest. It would really put the South River Forest vision in peril if we, because this kind of larger, broader land use planning vision for our community is going to require funding from the state and all other kinds of independent funders. And who's going to, want to contribute money to a county that gives away their existing beautiful parks? So
I'll add just lastly that we're also asking for folks to still keep writing to DeKalb County Commissioners, although they don't listen, but the Blank Foundation and the Trust for Public Land. As I mentioned, I work for the Conservation Fund. Rudolph works for the Nature Conservancy. Trust for Public Land is the third of the 3 largest environmental nonprofits in the country. And I can tell you that the Conservation Fund and the Nature Conservancy have both written letters in opposition to the swap. And personally, I'm not sure why the Trust for Public Land is supporting it, so you can ask them that in your email.
there's still hope if we just keep pressuring them. Okay, quickly, I think we can answer a couple questions.
At the December East Atlanta meeting, Larry Johnson showed up.
Yes.
I walked right up to him and I said, Mr. Blackhall, he says, oh, no, we're not doing the swap. Out of his mouth, and I'm testifying to that.
Yeah. Well, politicians say all kinds of things, don't they?
As far as we can tell, he's been the politician most behind the swap.
Yeah.
So that would be really surprising.
So anyway, we have 2 flyers. Come pick one up if you're interested. The additional one is a South River Forest Coalition. We're trying the Watershed Alliance is a huge supporter and partner with the Nature Conservancy in this larger vision. And the coalition is kind of just a group of neighbors and organizations, again, supporting this broader land use planning initiative. Thank you for bringing us in.
All right, we're shifting gears back to more EACA direct business, but I think those are issues that are important for us to be aware of. So, Carla, you want to come on.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm Carla Causey. I'm the chair for East Atlanta Community Association Land Use and Zoning. Now, typically, since the last couple of months, I guess I come up and it's been a long presentation, but this is just basic updates today, or tonight, I should say. Couple of quick updates dealing with the 512 Flat Shoals Avenue development that went before the BZA. There was a lot of community input, and a lot of people showed up. They sent letters, emails, there were a few surveys, and just petitions and so forth from the neighbors, and they showed up. This particular one was actually denied through the BZA. That does not mean that the development cannot go forward. It means that at this juncture, the development in its present form that was presented to the community with the zoning or the zero parking, et cetera, and the special exception permit did not go through at this particular time. So the developer does have an opportunity to revamp some of his work and what he would like to present next and go for it from there. As we get additional information, I will let you know. There was another, yes?
If any developer is denied by the Board of Zoning Adjustment for a variance request,
Mhm.
they have to wait a year or two before they can go forward, in essence, about the same issue?
Correct. Now, the time frame, Ed can correct me if I'm wrong, the time frame for zoning, it's the 2-year one, but the variance, I think, is a little different. If it had been deferred, you could go ahead kind of immediately with a little delay, make some changes. With the outright denial, it's a little more complicated, but it does not mean that it's off the table for this year. So it's just a matter of talks, and many times the developers, whether they be independents or large corporations or even neighbors at large, they will still come forward, and we still talk during that time frame to help them to kind of frame what their next actions are if they really want to go forward with it. But at this point, I haven't heard anything, but I'll be speaking with him next week. Any question about that one? This again is for the variance for parking for zero, parking from 57 on-site to 0 with the special exception permit for off-site parking reduction to 32. Okay? Next, update was dealing with what we call the LOR, that just meant land lot of record or lot of record. There was a request for a particular property, 2 property owners on Gresham Avenue. This one did not come for a vote, it was just more of a recommendation, that there were 2 parcels. One was a developed parcel and one was an undeveloped parcel. They requested to join the 2 parcels so that 3 properties could be produced out of this one. And the mapping that was used from, I've got a couple of maps. This was like a 1922. I had a 1911 in there as well, that they were going back to that lot of the map or parcel of record. So that the recommendations that came from East Atlanta Land Use and Zoning was a denial for that one, and that it needed to be a bit more, the mapping needed to be a bit more up to date and accurate as to what happened. The map that was provided showed streets that did not exist, parcels that were no longer the same dimensions, but he wanted to go back to that. So we said, it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just a matter of using more accurate and valid information. So again, land use and zoning from EACA and land use and zoning for the MPU provided the recommendations to the city. Oftentimes we have something that requires a quick turnaround where we're only allowed to have about 10 to 20 days, if that much, to put in a recommendation. So that's gone through. I do not have the feedback from that one as of this point. Once we have it, we'll let you know how that moved forward. The other one that was a hotbed, which I refer to, and I guess some of us will refer to as the McPherson development. This is a recent letter that went out in January to the neighbors in that particular area about an encroachment issue. That particular developer is looking to have a new development alongside the freeway, and they went back to a map from 1890. It was about 120 years, okay? So it was like the 1890s. However, because it hasn't exactly come or officially come forward to land use and zoning for East Atlanta or for the MPU, we're just working with the neighbors directly to kind of give a little input about what their next steps would be in order to address the issue of either if it's an encroachment or if it's an adverse possession issue, or if it's really just a matter of going using an archivist to get some information about the titles. So I have gotten some input from resources directly on land use and zoning. We do have an attorney and someone who can answer questions and kind of provide a little more guidance as to what the next steps are for the community. So we're trying to make sure that land use and zoning for East Atlanta is not just one that looks at the information that comes through and does a voting on certain variances and so forth, but also provides resources or directs neighbors as to what resources are available to them to make proper decisions for whatever they decide to do with their land. Question.
What is the encroachment?
What is said is that from the 1892 map, the particular piece of land, what's the encroachment is saying that the development, the homes that were developed along the outskirts of the development, is that when they were originally sold, is that was two arguments. One is that the parcel was sold and that the new owners of the land encroached on pieces of land that were not included in that survey. Okay, so they've taken up a part of the land that belongs to this new developer, and he wants it back. So all of the homes that have been built around there are encroaching on the land, and that's needed for their development. That's one. The other is that true? And to know if that's true requires an archivist or a title search and some other things. But to get more to the weeds of it, we're actually setting up a separate Q&A for the neighbors so that they understand what's happening and some next steps to go with that. But that's really what it is. This is my land is A, and you built your land and you took part of mine. Maybe it was actually the official first registered deed included the land that's the cause of what we believe is the encroachment, or what they believe is the encroachment. So we'll see. And that information about is who will be, when that meeting will be held. I just have to work that out with the advisor and the resource that we're bringing in. And then it'll be announced so the neighbors can come and they can ask their questions and kind of, like I said, get next steps and what they can do at this point because they want to head it off. One more, and I'm going. There's a bunch of them, but I'll just do this last one. Deals with tiny homes. Very interesting. Great affinity for them, but they are tricky. Tiny homes are coming to East Atlanta, and we're working on that. The other is about residential properties abutting the commercial district and wanting to rezone, and how that affects the other neighbors' steps on their neighbors that may not be in support of that, and those that may be in support, but just getting some valid information as to how you stand and how you can proceed in either direction. So that's basically a lot of informational questions that I get right now deal with resources. Where can I find information about this and how does this work? And that's perfectly fine because that's why we're there. Any questions about anything I've covered today? This is a very short and sweet update. If there's something more specific about your particular case, like you sent me an email about, we can speak about it after the meeting. Yeah, Jenny, and then here.
I just wanted to do a quick update on what's going on at the Triangle.
Oh, yeah.
So I've been staying connected on that with the city. And first of all, there's a piece of property where 6 townhomes are being built, and there was some question whether or not the plans actually matched, or what they're doing actually matched the plans. So a city inspector came out to look at it, and for a variety of reasons, I read the stop work order, but it was some things about the area not being protected properly and plans not being on site and all that. So as of last weekend, there was a stop work order on it, so we'll see where that goes.
There are 2 stop workers that are going. Well, there's 2. Well, there's one stop work order that's in place down at the Boulder Crest Triangle, and everybody knows where that is. The other stop work is over here at Earth Shaking. That apparently, once the ownership had changed hands, is that the new builder took it upon themselves to just start demolishing the land, when in fact their permits had expired over a year. So they have a stop work order, and then we have the one down the road.
Back at the Triangle. So
Back at the
there's one
Triangle.
there. There's also in question, there's a piece of R4 property that's a part of that apparently they're using, they're building up against that, and, well, that's the theory when you look at the land, the layouts and all that. And so the city is trying to determine whether or not their commercial property is touching that R4 property, whereas it should have a 20-foot setback, so that's still in dispute. And then also the larger parcel, the 6-acre parcel, which was owned by Thrive, as many of you may have read, Thrive has been purchased by Toll Brothers, which is a extremely large developer. And I think the folks at Thrive are still working for them because they just resubmitted new subdivision plans. This is their second official, maybe third official update on it. But anyway, what it's resulting in is the same number of homes but on smaller lots. So maybe they're in on the tiny home craze. And so there's 21 homes there. They've taken away their street that dumps out onto Flat Shoals, and now they're using just, they want to go ahead and open up Grace, which empties onto Maynard Terrace, and then another street, Nicholson, that has been a part of those plans for a while, that empties onto Pasley. So no longer do they have ingress and egress on Flat Shoals, but it is Grace is what they're recommending, and Nicholson. They put their townhomes that are a part of this development, although it's confusing, I'm not sure why it's part of the R4 plans, but they show it laid out there, has gone from 10 townhomes was the last version now to 13. So, and they've made those a little bit smaller too to fit in there. So that's the situation there. I've got a full set of plans that I printed out so that we could really take a look at it and read the notes and all that. So if anybody wants to contact me and come by my house and take a look at them, I had a work session set up for Sunday, but it's possible not everybody knew about it since nobody came by. But anyway, I looked at them. And it's very interesting. But anyway, if you guys want to learn a little bit more and understand how it's impacting, if you guys live around that area, I'd be happy to share them with you. So my phone number is 404-797-1100. 404-797-1100. I've been pretty busy lately, but I'd be happy to set up a time if you just want to come over and look at them.
Yeah, that's a big. Yes, one more about the triangle. As you know, in the Boulder Crest Triangle area, this currently zoned as a low commercial, like a C1. We're still working on the neighborhood commercial. We do have an informational meeting, which is more of a technical one. We had the informational one for the owners 2 months ago, and we've been working with the city planning, myself, Andy, and Brian. And the Office of City Planning is sending out a representative to answer some of the technical questions that came about from the owners about how much land they would be using and what becomes unusable, and also how the new developments are affecting them as well, with them abutting them for the residential, the commercial, the setback areas. It gets a lot more technical than most of us really like to get sometimes. But this is really important to those owners. And like I said, right now, it's still a very, very positive zone as in favor of changing to neighborhood commercial, but just solidifying some information. But we do have that meeting next week on Monday. It will be Monday evening at the Village. So right now, it's just the owners meeting where they're getting more the owners and business owners, property and business owners will be involved with that. And I'll have updates for that when we post them for the LU's meetings. And that's, like I said, more of the short version. See, because Jenny brought up one, and I was like, that's on my list of the 20. But it's all good. Any questions at all?
I had a really quick.
Yes.
When you were saying the small houses are coming, are you talking about ADUs, like in the back of houses, the additional dwelling units in the back that are going to?
We're talking about mommy pads and
kill our trees, all of our trees.
Well, and I was kind of joking as far as the Village, because we don't have the Village here, although there is one off of 2nd Avenue from my understanding. But in this particular area, East Atlanta, we have some inquiries from neighbors who would like to build tiny homes in their backyards. Some of our homes, some of our lots, I should say a lot of them, most of them, are non-conforming. Some of them are very much so oversized by today's standards. And they do allow for things. Now, the ordinance as it deals with tiny homes had changed for the city of Atlanta. It had been going through various versions of it in 2016, 17. And last year, the newest version was ratified. I don't have a copy of it here, but I'll work with Michelle and Aaron, the website, so we can maybe put up a little something for land use and zoning resources. You can click on it, but it will give you some information about what the new ordinances are as far as it relates to these new accessory dwelling units. that do not require connectivity to the main or primary dwelling, but they still have to conform to the ordinances as far as being seen from the street, the various setbacks and so forth. And there's community input involved. I believe that most of the lots that we have here are non-conforming, and so oftentimes many of those are going to still come through land use and zoning for East Atlanta, for you, so we can get more of a look and see. Those that are not, you just never know. So we'll have to see how that comes about. But that was the unofficial inquiry, which just means that typically when I get these unofficial ones, shortly thereafter, there are a lot more that are actually very, very much so official.
No, we're done.
Okay. Any questions after this? I can meet after. Thank you all.
Thanks, Carla.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm Carlin, EACA Transportation Committee. Who's the rest of my Transportation Committee, just so we can get a show of hands? Hey, yes, Sue, Nick, Henry, Jack, awesome. So these are the folks in the community who are thinking about transportation issues, from parking to driving to walking to all sorts of mobility in the village. And I'm not going to give a long update today. I'm going to present a really specific update, and then I'm going to ask for y'all's vote on a resolution we put together. And the update is specifically about Southmoreland Avenue. And if you've lived here a long time, you know that Southmoreland Avenue has been kind of a thorn in all of our sides as a major state thoroughfare that's not real safe for pedestrians. It's not real community friendly. Official work on it has been going on since before 2008, and if you talk to Henry, you'll know it's actually been going on for 40 years. So this effort is not new for the community. What is new is that, as many folks are aware, GDOT has been making movements to evaluate the corridor, especially the area between United Avenue and Glenwood, for things like pedestrian safety and crossing and kind of individual improvements to make it better. And so we want to see kind of a grander vision than that, something that looks like the 2008 Livable Centers Initiative, or LCI, proposal that many have seen. And so at a recent GDOT meeting, they said, hey, you know what, we're not going to look at piecemeal at pedestrian crossings here, crosswalks there. We want to do kind of a whole evaluation of that part of the corridor, and we're going to do that in the spring. And so we said, great, let's make sure that your money is where your mouth is, and so we wanted to follow up on that as EACA, and then also as sort of a larger coalition that includes SAND, the South Atlantans for Neighborhood Development, and MPW. So we got together with those groups and we said, let's create the Southmoreland Avenue Working Group to try to get this done. For you Lord of the Rings fans out there, that acronym is SMAUG. I'll let you look that up later. I was amused by that. And so what we would like to do is create this working group, and I've got a resolution that discusses kind of what that would look like. There's a bunch of copies in the back for folks that want to read the text. I will not read it to you, but I'll summarize sort of what we'd like to do and how we'd like to do it. So there's a lot of whereas statements like a good resolution has, and it's acknowledging things like the Moreland LCI plan was adopted in 2008. It's got a great vision for that corridor, a lot of things that are still relevant. Moreland is still a really unsafe space for pedestrians. Injuries and deaths continue to happen, and it's not a really multimodal space. Moreland is designed for cars. It's not really safe for any other modality of transportation, and that goes against a core principle of equity, as others in the community today have talked about. There's a continued desire to make this corridor something that's safer and multimodal. So all that whereas aside, we want to resolve to create the Southmoreland Avenue Working Group. And so what that working group would look like is it would consist of 5 to 7 members. And so 2 or 3 designees would come from SAND, 2 or 3 would come from EACA, and then there would be 1 member from NPUW Transportation. So we kind of have a group of folks that represents stakeholders on Moreland Avenue. So from each of EACA and SAND, one of those representatives will be a de facto transportation committee member. So I'm going to be in the group for EACA. Nathan Clubb, I think, will probably be in the group for SAND, and then there will be a vote for the NPUW. The other 1 or 2 spots, depending on interests among you all, from EACA and SAND are open, and we want to have anyone who's interested in this topic from the community be a part of this. We want it to be transparent. We want folks who are interested in seeing Moreland become a better place join this group. So as part of the resolution after this, think about that, and I'd love to have folks self-nominate or nominate your friends, neighbors, people who are who live near Moreland Avenue to really come and join this group. And while meeting schedules and kind of logistics have yet to be worked out, this will probably be something we meet as a group of once every 2 months, I'm thinking, with GDOT, representatives from City of Atlanta as they're available. So that said, that's kind of the vision, to get this working group going so that we can consistently follow up with GDOT, say, hey, when is this evaluation going to happen? What are you finding? What are the results? And kind of, you need somebody in a group to herd cats and kind of push these things forward, and that's what we want to do. So that said, I would love, if folks have a chance to kind of mull it over here in the next couple of seconds, I'd love a motion to approve this resolution.
It's not a committee, it's automatically a motion to the main body.
I make a motion that we create this,
Smaug.
Working group.
So moved. It's in the second. Let's do that.
Wonderful. So moved. Thanks for the lingo. Great. So we have a motion and a second to create the group. So wonderful. So that's fantastic. So the next step then is to fill. Did you have a question about it?
I did. So the idea of having these representatives is more to make sure there's at least that many people committed to be involved, as opposed to trying to limit it to that many people being involved, right?
Right, absolutely. So we want to make sure that if you're interested, you have an opportunity. Another part of this is that the reason we're calling it a working group is so that these meetings can be something that is productive with GDOT. So we're talking about kind of details and in the weeds of the process that's going forward, as opposed to regular public meetings, where I think it's an important balance to strike between talking to GDOT about all of the things that we're angry and concerned about versus working with them collaboratively to get stuff done. So it's a group that will kind of get into those weeds, as opposed to facilitating public meetings that can often get bogged down with feedback that GDOT needs to hear but often can't act on at the moment. So are you self-nominating, Jack?
Sure, why
I mean, I'm not interested.
What does that mean?
Vote to create the group since the motion was.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So
moved.
Hold that. Do you run these votes? How does
You
this?
can.
Great.
Just that.
All right. So all in favor of the motion to support the creation of South Atlantans or South Moreland Avenue Working Group? Aye. Aye. All opposed? All abstained?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Quickly.
The question is, why stop at United at the south? Why not go down to Custer? Why not go further than that?
you're trying to get crazy.
Yeah, a couple reasons. One, that was one of the scope proposed by GDOT. Two, once you get past Custer, you're no longer in City of Atlanta, and so jurisdictionally it gets complicated. And three, in order to get stuff done, I think we need to have a scope. And so there's a lot to be done north of Glenwood. There's a lot to be done south. And so for now, that's the scope we're talking about. And it may expand talking with GDOT, but for now, that's the zone. Yeah.
One of the things that we talked about at the committee that I think people who weren't at the committee might be interested in hearing is that the model for this was the Imagine Memorial thing, which we've all sort of been enjoying, I think, since they got that fixed. So this
They're
would be,
talking to Cab Avenue too now.
yeah, Cab Avenue as well. So it's similar to those things. I think probably before it's all over with, there will be some visioning type things where we would invite the whole community to come and all
Right.
of that. So,
Yep. No, that's a great point. And so a lot of you have seen kind of the Memorial Drive development, and Greg Giuffrida was a big part of that, and he'll be a part of this as well. And so we're going to borrow a lot from their playbook for how they were able to engage all those communities. The last line in the resolution here is the working group will update and seek feedback from the NPU Transportation Committee SAND and EACA, and so exactly the goal is to provide frequent updates and get feedback from you all as we start our work. So.
Can you add EVA to that?
Yeah. Yeah, do you want to put in, or you can also put in a representative, so if we call for nominations now, if we get a lot of interest.
I can't put in a representative this second, because that would be me.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, we would like to.
Yeah, let's email. Yep, that'd be great. Okay, can we ask for nominations real quick, if there's any?
Okay.
At the moment, any nominations for folks interested in being part of the EACA contingent of the Southmoreland Working Group?
Why don't you just do that outside the meeting?
Well, she already did it.
She's asking.
Crickets.
if anyone's
And if
interested.
crickets I'll bother you all individually for folks who I know may be interested or especially good at doing this stuff. So feel free to nominate yourself now. Otherwise, I'll come find you. Did I hear a nomination, Jack?
If nobody else wants to do it.
All right.
All right, cool.
Thanks,
Jack, and
Carla.
we'll find someone else. Thanks so much, everyone.
All right, we just have a couple more things, 2, 3 more minutes, 5 minutes, not too long, so hang in there with us.
That's how we get a beer. So if you've been coming to EACA meetings for a long time, you've heard the exact same presentation of them tonight. So just listen back to last year. Years ago, we used to vote on every expenditure at EACA meeting, and that became incredibly time consuming. And so we changed the bylaws, we changed the process to present a budget to you, which is on the table. It was presented last month, it's presented the 2 months in a row. We voted on it, and essentially you're approving those expenditures without any other input, though we also put out a financial report every month, and on each financial report it says every check that was written so that you could see how those expenditures are done. And it's basically the same as last month. There's a couple of, we updated the amount of money in the bank from last month and now, and a grant or two came in, so there's some slight changes. Nancy also just asked me about money for cleanup supplies for the village and things, so I'm verbally adding $200 to that column for the year for Nancy to do.
She said 100. She said 100.
Not even 200's great. Yeah, and for Christmas things and stuff like that. So if there's any questions about the budget, I'll take them. If not, we'll vote on them. Essentially, we'll have adopted them for the fiscal year, which starts March 1st. So it started last week. It runs for 12 months. Any questions? If not, everyone in favor of this budget, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Ayes have it. If you have any questions about anything finances in EACA, it is your money. Please reach out.
I move we approve February minutes.
And financial report. And financial report.
All those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. A couple quick announcements. Since the police were not here, for those who weren't already aware, they have formed a sort of a task force of 22 officers in Zone 6 who are working to reduce the car break-ins. They've made a couple dozen arrests in just a couple weeks, and things are better. I wouldn't say they're perfect, but they are better. But the thing that you have to keep in mind is call and report the car break-ins. They will not keep coming back to our neighborhood if you don't report them. So they will think the problem is gone. And I know it's a pain, it's hard to stay home from work or whatever it is that you may want to do when you go out to your car and discover this, but it does help, and it also can assist them actually catching the people. So take that extra time if you humanly can, and do not report it online. Make an actual call to 911 and get an officer to come. Jim?
Make them do it.
I just wanted to report, unfortunately, our house was broken into a couple of Fridays ago at 7 o'clock at night. Some guys kicked in our side door and got in the house, and it was like 15 minutes before we got home from work, so it was pretty scary. But anyway, unbeknownst to them, we moved a lot of the stuff out of our house since we're doing a lot of construction work. So they came in, ran around in circles, knocked our heating pad off the wall thinking it was the alarm pad, got freaked out, grabbed a key that we used to lower our chandelier with, ran out the door and threw it on the ground, and that was that. But they did, we had to replace our door and all, which is kind of sad. But anyway, just heads up, there's some knuckleheads out there, and that was kind of a brazen thing to do on a Friday night at 7 o'clock.
And in fact, we've had, other than that, I think one other burglary in the last 6 weeks, which was somebody who left their garage open overnight.
Well, he did say
and got their garage cleaned out.
he did
so.
say to me that like 2 or 3 weeks before that, there was a house about a half a block away on Flat Shoals that had been broken into, and then I heard somebody else say on Boulder Crest. So I don't know how much all that's getting captured. I will say APD was there pretty quickly, and they even had a gentleman, one of the officers, follow up with me last week that's working the case, but I'm not sure what else. They picked up one fingerprint. I don't know if it was the thermostat guy that installed the thermostat or. But anyway, that's the situation. Just be on the lookout.
We will be headed to Argosy this evening, so you can thank
Argosy.
Armando in advance that he's donating some drinks to us. So
I guess it's free beer.
please get out of here. And if you wish
He has a free Corona for you there.
No Corona, Ralph.
Oh, one other, I was actually asking one other quick announcement. Just in light of the fact that we do come here for meetings at Brandon Towers, and we know the coronavirus is an issue, that if you are sick and thinking of coming to a meeting, stay home. And that applies to a lot of other public venues, but here it probably goes tenfold, that we don't want to kill any of the residents here or any of our fellow EACA members. Please keep that in mind, and if you have questions, the CDC website is the place to go for that.
Do we have a password for our meeting?
No, I'm going to be there.
You're there.
Next month, we'll probably